when we're discussing the physical properties of soil, we're going to use a couple different descriptions. And based off of these properties, that's how we know the quality of the soil. So the first one we're going to talk about is water holding capacity. When I say capacity, what do you guys think of?
A max or something?
Yeah, we can have a maximum capacity, which is the very, very most that something can hold. So when we look at these things over here, when we look at these things over here, which one has the larger capacity?
The bigger one.
The bigger one has a greater capacity. Exactly. So when we talk about water holding capacity, what we're referring to is how much water that soil can hold. Okay. You good? So soils that are more porous and have smaller particle size can hold more water. So when we're talking about aeration, we mean how much air can be moved through the soil. How much oxygen can be put through the soil. Have you guys ever been to like a park or your yard and like the lawn guy has been out and they've like taken tubes of soil out and left little holes in the lawn? Thank you, Brooklyn. Isaiah, have you noticed that before? Have you been to a park and the lawn care person has poked holes in the soil?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes you'll go to the park and there'll be like little tubes of soil everywhere because they've taken samples of the soil out, right? They're trying to increase the aeration and put more oxygen in that soil. So that the next property we're going to talk about is drainage rate. So when I say rate, what are we talking about?
How fast?
Yeah, how fast or slow, the pace at which something moves. So when we're talking specifically about drainage rate, we're talking about how quickly water moves through the soil. So if there are large pockets of air in that soil, the water is going to move through quicker. Brooklyn and Isaiah?
The water's going to move quicker? That's where you left off.
With a higher drainage rate. So our next physical property is the compaction potential. So what does compaction mean?
Like compacting together.
Yes, if you're compacting something, you're squeezing it, you're pushing it together. So the compaction potential means how easy or hard it is to compact that substance.
That's it's not really talking about tethers.
Yeah, specifically here we're talking about like the soil compaction potential. But you can compact things other than soil, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Our next physical property is the erosion potential. Have any of you guys heard that term erosion before? Yeah?
It's a thing that happens in the canyon.
Yeah?
Grand Canyon.
Right.
Yeah.
The soil there eroded and you were left with the
The
peat.
water was like, cool dirt.
We've had a local problem with erosion, right? We've had a lot of flooding with wildcat in the rivers,
Oh no.
and that flooding of the rivers has caused erosion. So erosion refers to how easily the topsoil, that topmost layer, is lost after rainfall. What's your question? Yes, I have to record myself teaching. Yes, I would appreciate that. We've gone past that a little bit, but it's fine. Okay, so erosion potential is how fast the top layer of soil is lost. And our final physical property that we're going to talk about today is the nutrient potential. So remember yesterday we talked about how the difference between dirt and soil is that soil's alive, it's full of nutrients. But some soils are better than other soils, right? Some soils are more nutritious and have better content in them. So those soils would have a higher nutrient potential. So when we're talking about nutrient potential, we're talking about the ability of that specific soil to store nutrients. Okay? Okay. So you guys have this slide in your notes if you need to refer back to it, if you forgot what the definition is. So now that we know the definition is, yeah. So now that we know those different definitions, we're going to apply it to our different soil samples. So remind me, what was our soil that had that basketball-sized particles? Sand.
Yeah.
So we're going to start by talking about sand. So keeping in mind when we're talking about sand that the particle sizes are bigger, right? So in our minds, it's like there's basketballs, right?
Basketball.
And there's space between the particle size, okay? So if we were going to talk about a sandy soil, a soil with a high percentage of sand particles, what do we think the aeration would be like? Do we think sandy soils, guys, would have high aeration or low aeration? You can show me with your thumbs. Remember, aeration means this amount of air between the particles.
Oh.
So if we have a lot of space between our particles, is there going to be a high aeration or a low aeration? High.
Because think about it,
It's high,
bigger
not
substance,
low.
right? Okay, if it's more bigger, can it carry more space? Yes. But can it cover all the gaps? No. If it's smaller, it's almost compact, getting all the space that it needs.
So Jonathan, imagine my trash can was filled with basketballs.
We could put like 3 of them in there.
You could fit 3. Would there be a lot of air left in my trash can?
No. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, there would be a ton of space between the basketballs. And it's the same with sand. Sand is a larger soil particle, so there's a lot of space between the particles when compared to clay or silt. Okay, so we're going to keep going with our easy or hard, high, low, right? So tillage, when it comes to Isaiah,
Sorry.
please,
I get one more.
one more, and
You
then
can still, I'm listening.
one more, and then sit down. Thank you.
He already had 3 of them
I
already.
know. I'm gonna give him like vitamin C poisoning or something.
Now, but you don't talk, I'm listening.
So remember, we're talking about our sandy soil, those basketball-sized particles. Okay. So tell me about tillage. Do we think sand would be easy to till or harder to till?
When did you say?
Tillage. So when you're digging up the
Oh, it
soil.
would be easier.
Yeah. Sand would be really easy to move. Okay.
It'd be so pointless though.
Yeah. Okay. What about water infiltration? Remember, sorry guys, brain fart. So this has to do with our water holding capacity, okay? So how much water can run through it? Do we think it would have, water would run through it at a high rate or a low rate? Sand. Yeah, why do you think that, Jesse?
Oh, I got an earbud right. Cause like, I don't know, there's like, I don't know what you call it. There's a little like
Exactly. I love your thinking, Jesse. Thanks for that idea. Yes, there's a lot of space between our particles, so the water is going to filter through it really easily. What about water holding capacity? If the water is running through it really easily, is it going to have a high water holding capacity and really soak it in, or is it going to have a low water holding capacity?
Low.
Low, yeah, that water is trickling right through all those pores, all those air pockets. So it's going to have a low water holding capacity. What do we think about nutrient holding capacity? Is it going to have a lot of nutrients, or is it going to have a low nutrient holding capacity? Low. Why do you think that, Jonathan?
I don't know. It just makes sense. Yeah.
Care to elaborate? Why does it make sense?
I don't know.
Where are the nutrients going?
Well, I mean, you had a 50-50
Yeah.
shot.
They're like falling right through, right? Yeah, there's nothing for them to hold on to because of all those air pockets. So the nutrient holding capacity is low. So because there's all this space between the particles and the water's running right through and the nutrients are running right through, there's going to be a low percentage of organic material, and it's not going to be very good for growing crops. It's going to have low fertility. Okay? So sand is pretty much low in everything, won't hold water, won't hold nutrients. We don't want to plant in it. Okay?
Wait, but what about like palm trees?
Some plants do very well in sand. That's how they've adapted. Remember what our succulents wanted more air and that sandier, so we added the gravel to our soil to make the succulents happy. But if we were growing crops like tomatoes and corn and things to feed people, they like a different type of soil. Okay. So we're going to ask that same set of questions, but for our clay soil. Remember, our clay has those tiny, tiny particles. Have any of you guys taken ceramics class or played with clay?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that like?
It's not sticky, but it's like, I don't know, it's soft and squishy.
It's soft. If you put your hand through clay, would it sink in right to your elbow? Or would you really have to push on it?
No.
You gotta push.
Yeah, so do you think there's a lot of open space in clay? Or is it really compacted? Yeah, these teeny, teeny, tiny particles don't leave a lot of space. So remember, our clay is like marbles. Brooklyn, if I filled my trash can with clay marbles, would there be a lot of space left, like with the sand? No, everything's going to be real close together. So we're going to ask those same questions. So show me again, you guys. So our clay soils, are they going to have high aeration like sand soils, or are they going to have low aeration?
Low.
Low. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Jesse. What about compaction? How easily it squishes together? Is it going to squish together easily or not so easily? If I take my clay, so imagine this was full of sand, and I pushed my hand in it. Could I push my hand all the way to the bottom if I tried really hard?
Yep.
So that has low compaction. What about with clay? If I pushed really hard, could I put my hand all the way to the bottom? No, it's got high compaction. What about water holding capacity? High water for the clay soils, yeah. High water holding capacity or low water holding capacity?
High water.
High water capacity. Remember Shania, when you said you were interacting with the clay, you said it didn't feel wet, but it,
Yeah, it was just squishy.
yeah, a little squishy. When you get clay wet, it holds a lot of that water, doesn't it? Yeah. So if it's holding things in, what do we think about the nutrient holding capacity? High nutrients or low nutrients? High. Very good. What about our drainage? Do we think water is going to run through it easy?
No.
Oh. Yep, thanks for your participation so far. Sorry, drainage. Do we think it's going to have high drainage or low drainage? Low drainage, exactly. Our soil around here has a lot of clay in it. Does it drain well? No, we flood all the time. There's nowhere for the water to go because it holds it all in the soil and then it kind of puddles on the top. So because it holds together really easy and it keeps that water in and it keeps that nutrients and it's really compact, clay soils don't erode easily. So we're